So the project that I'm presenting today is titled Phonocentric, What I Think About Austin, One Nation Under Gentrification. And it's born out of a project that I did with in class for Dr. Terrence Green at the University of Texas at Austin. We're studying gentrification, and for the midterm, rather than asking us to write a paper, he gave us different options for alternative assessment. Basically a different way for us to demonstrate mastery of the core concepts from the coursework, and an ability to to kind of integrate. I really appreciate Dr. Green because he uses critical pedagogy and he allows for alternative modes of expression. And so what I did was I took kind of my lived experience plus the historical research that I've done on the school district of Austin, Texas, and also the city of Austin, integrated it with spoken word, poetry, and also music from Detroit, which is also one of the most rapidly gentrifying cities in the country. So that's why I chose J Dilla. Well, I also really like J Dilla. But yes, and so all the photos that you'll see are from a project that we did, a photo project that we did with our students over the summer, English learners, where we went around and took pictures of, for instance, the destruction of Chicano murals for, in the name of development, and also just understanding like the culture and appreciating the murals in the neighborhood. And then we actually took bricks that we gathered from this site, and we created, the class culminated in creating micro murals on the bricks that we took from this site that the students were able to then integrate their kind of like their inspiration from the things that they had seen from around the neighborhood. So I'm going to only probably stop a couple times. I have to flip the record, and I have a couple things to say, but I'm going to try to go through the first 8 tracks of Phonocentric, What I Think About Austin. Thank you for tuning in on Instagram. Thank you to my friends and family and esteemed colleagues for being here. Really happy to be representing the University of Texas and also my alma mater, Soka University of America. I'd like to welcome y'all to Austin, Texas, live music capital of the world, also the most economically segregated, and with the unique distinction of the only fast-growing metropolitan area in the country with a declining African-American population. How this came to be is currently exemplified in the gentrification of East Austin, a geography that is a contested terrain built on white supremacy and the blood, sweat, and tears of the always resilient people of color who make it our community. See, Austin wasn't always this way. In fact, it wasn't until 1928 that the city hired a consulting firm from Dallas to help deal with the problem of integration. Colonel Monroe Scheidt, a fine southern businessman, had a gripe with all that integration. So he came up with the construction of Hyde Park, sparking the first wave of white flight. Hindsight's 2020, but I'm sure he made plenty of money. Funny how the city followed suit, hiring suits from Dallas with callous hearts. They impart their caucus charts around zoning, honing in on melanin to restrict and pin people of color to the availability of utilities beyond East Avenue. It made sense, they claimed, that really African Americans and whites were better suited to live out of sight of the other. So much for brotherly love. So if you were black and wanted water or electricity, you had to be willing to move your stack east. So it wasn't segregation, but relegation to an area of Austin with no zoning, condoning the proliferation of hazardous industrial sites that might be right next door to people of color. The city built projects like Rosewood Courts and placed social services, recreational sports in proximity, thus limiting the need for people of color to venture west. This tale is just starting, let's get on with the rest. Come on, between 1880 to 1910, freed slave households hailed the capital with their presence. Flooding made investors hesitant to build in the area around 1st Street known as Little Mexico. That all changed though with the help of Public Works. The land got usurped in 1950 with the construction of Longhorn Dam and I-35, bisecting the city into further iterations of east and west. Industrial decline, white flight, and disinvestment would set the stage for urban renewal and the other devices and gentrification's tool belt. Ripples felt to this day, but this is man-made, y'all. It's not the natural way. Let's look at the part our education system played. Let's get back to 1930 when Keeling Junior High was burgeoning. 2 years post the 28 plan, the ban on blacks and white schools intact. But what to do with the tan? See, thanks to the work of Elliot Shredder, we know Hispanics also needed a tether. Technically white, but appearing quite brown. They needed more schools on their side of town. So with the construction of Longhorn Dam, AISD came up with a plan. See, in 1901, Allen used to be Austin High, till overcrowding was alleviated by new construction and function to geographically separate and partition, thanks to the addition of O. Henry in 53, just a year before Brown v. So Allen High was for Chicanos, Keeling for Africanos, the west side albinos, at least lacking melanin, but with capital in no short supply. What we really need is another high school in a Johnston High. I forgot to change that. Attendance zones mirrored the former practice of redlining to guard against unholy combining and mixing of races. Riverside High School was built in 1959, which is to cover our bases. Fervor around Civil War centennial in the era of Jim Crow meant choosing a Confederate general and murderer of indigenous people for the face of the school. Like Johnston, like Reagan, would help put people in their places in the hierarchy. I mean, we can't have anarchy, or can we? Well, the feds disagreed and in 71 stepped in with their own decree. 17 years from Brown had passed. In 56, 13 African American students were integrated into the predominantly Hispanic Allen. In 1964, Dr. Akins became the first black faculty at Johnston. Meanwhile, housing segregation would rise to 91.6 on the dissimilarity index, meaning neighborhood schools would be nearly impossible to desegregate, and it's like that to this day, where even campus with healthy mixes of racial diversity obscure the academic tracking and exclusion that occurs. In 1970, only 56 of the 385 newly zoned white students for Anderson High had enrolled. The rest had either moved or rented their houses to avoid rezoning. In 1971, Federal Jack Roberts agreed with the school board that the location and the size of the schools made it, quote, impossible to desegregate, end quote, and therefore Anderson and Keeling would be closed and one-way busing instituted. The loss to the community was disrupted continuity. In an interview, the current Keeling principal describes the events as a nasty, deep history of loss. That's the feeling, gentrification, separation, people from the place. It's about the space, y'all. It's in your face, dog. Get out the way. Violence is symbolic like the state's laws. Get out the way. Anderson alumnus Harris recalls, they shut it down, but its heart is still here. The people here still love it, and you can't take it away. Although she complains, where it once was a place of excitement and energy, it's now a dead place, with condos and two-story box houses. Another alumnus, Ambrose Kearney, correlates the closure of the school with the shuttering of business and associated urban blight. Charles Akins, the principal of Anderson when it was shut down in 1971, recalls, quote, they were hostile because they felt it was unfair. One-way busing, we're making the sacrifice. We're being taken from our neighborhood to go to a school outside of the neighborhood. So that took a while for them to make that adjustment. Austin ISD was founded during segregation, that's de jure. So black people were excluded like nowadays on our juries. This fury transformed, righteous indignation was born. In 1889, Purdue and Anderson had more PhD per capita than any high school in the area. 1907, it became independent, before separate but equal. It far exceeded its counterparts and needed no sequel. But a new campus was constructed in 53, coincided with other developments as we'll shortly see, leading to their demise. leading to the destruction of the community. That's what it's really a question about. Where community exists, resistance is formed. Therefore, it must be destroyed. We saw that in disinvestment. We saw that in one-way busing. We see it today with the attack on teachers' unions. It's all about destroying community, displacement, supplantation, and leave it drained of all resources. One nation under gentrification is the explanation. It's the need of capital over the needs of people here in the state capital. A monument to whiteness. It's quite frightening. In spite of this, we move forward. We hope. We don't give up, no. One day I'll have to DJ. With the completion of I-35, the mental and social separation of the racists in Austin was now physically isolated too. Whites had the political ability to resist trends that value capital over people, while people of color bear the brunt. They get disparaged when they strike up a blunt, while these capitalists pull hella stunts, like restrictive covenants and VA loans that were overwhelmingly white, and yet community was fostered with all this in spite. But sustained disinvestment, you know, the rent gap allowed slumlords to begin buying up land. See, in the future, they knew the city had a plan. Give the brown people the least desirable, most polluted or hazardous parts of Austin until the land becomes more desirable. At which point, we'll fire up all the engines of the capital, tear down the Jumpaline, and use the gap in earnings to sell some cats and coffee beans, and attract better clientele, etc. and whatnot. So now the Poder got rid of tank farms, the Holly power plant was shuttered, the air's more breathable. Here comes Code Next, more fire to the crucible. Airbnb, Uber, and Google, voice-activated low riders got the landscape east. Cultural appropriation and property tax exasperation, along with public infrastructure exploitation for private gain, and the community's lost. And when they miss their rent, their payments, their belongings get tossed out on the curb, like in that one book, Evicted. Check out how to kill a city, the blueprints inscripted. Gentrification, one nation under gentrification. It's 1992, begins at Urban Renew, where developers in the city council use city planning anew. I moved to Austin from New Braunfels in 95 and saw firsthand the reshaping of 2nd Street, where we used to go to Liberty Lunch to eat food for the soul, and hang with the day laborers who were working to put food on their plate that may have been enjoyed at Las Manitas on Congress, but they all had to be digested to make room for hotels and condos and shopping, destroying the counterculture and radical scene that was popping off in that space. So as white people like me moved in, due to the culture and the charm, little did I know I was doing the harm. Everywhere I used to go in Austin was once quite diverse. Now the city feels more like a hearse, as all I see is iPhone zombies wearing all black down to Abercrombie and Fitch. Switch the tempo, staccato, because now they hit the throttle. With the destruction of Lakeshore's affordable units, developers set their sights on doing it and doing it and doing it some more. Montopolis, Riverside, here's what's in store. Companies JLL and Nimes Capital are pushing a prop that would rid the area of working class and student population in favor of a domain-type development. PSW just bought Springdale Farm for further concrete envelopment of the natural and quite productive state it's currently in. At a meeting with the community, PSW stressed the importance of cultural attractiveness. You know, we just want to fit in. And if they happen to make a buck on the site, wait. Happen to make, now, fuck that. It's all about the bitches they make right up in the mills. So what about the people and the trees? It's just grist for the mill. Till there's an uprising for people, for good. Next time you're on IT, check out, defend our hoods, defend Boyle Heights, defend it and Quito. See, like Boots Riley said, they got helicopters, but we got hella people. Analog all the way. AISD Part 2. opened in 1986 during a robust two-way busing system that continued after federal oversight ended in 1983. The practice was ended in 1987 entirely. What remained were selective tracks and magnet schools of the formerly segregated schools of East Austin. LBJ Science Academy opened in 1985 and Johnston Liberal Arts in 1987. These supposedly prestigious academies served to insulate white students choosing to attend from the comprehensive neighborhood schools they were co-located within. In 2002, the schools were combined at LBJ to form the district's top school, LASA. The ensuing neglect of Johnston would lead to the state intervention when in 2008, Johnston became the first school forced to close by TEA due to academic reasons. This set the stage for Dr. Karstarpin's proposal to turn the newly named Eastside Memorial over to IDEA Charter School and the emergence of a new community advocacy group called Pride of the Eastside. Shoutouts to Julian, shoutouts to Elijah, Vincent, Stacy, Megan, Luke, Diana, Carl, Monica, Daniela. All the people, all the students had their voices heard. Put them paws up, put them paws up. Tell a kind of story with them paws up. Put them paws up, put them paws up. Tell a kind of story with them paws up. Let's go back to the 80s when common sense posed a nation at risk was that our schools were failing and the Russians are winning. Russians are winning, well, we better start spinning a new web of deceit. Mark White made a special committee on education, electronic data systems. Founder Ross Perot was the chair. Step up, sir, have a seat. What we need are standards, required achievement testing to graduate, and top-down accountability. So we had teams, we had TOS, RPTE, where English learners could be judged and reported to the SDAA in 2001 for SPED accountability. With the ascension of G.W. Bush to the presidency, and the appointment of Ron Page to Education Secretary, the testing craze with poison went nationally. The tech stroke just went viral. 03 tax test put campus closure in a spiral. 2004 NCLB leading up to today's star and requisite EOC and the money made by Pearson and ETS in the million tally. And students of color continue to get an education that's subtracting, impacting their ability to feel good about their own identity and community, because the curriculum's whitewashed, focused on literacy and numeracy instead of ethnic studies and liberating pedagogies. We get command and control, rote memorization, and testing pressures all taking their toll, trying to steal the soul of the promise of what education should be, for the purpose that each student can become happy. Absolutely. School choice fuels gentrification. Our schools have returned to pre-Brown era levels of segregation, leaving community schools under-enrolled and embroiled in tough conversations. While education is commodified and AFT under attack from across the nation and across both aisles, I might add, if you think that Democrats are different than a Republican, then you've been had, because they're both founded on whiteness, the glue that holds it all together with tightness. Unless we are willing to face the racism within, we will never see those changes reflected in the structures intact. The impact of segregation means it's hard to make friends that are different than you. And when you walk in the door, take a look at the floor. You can learn a lot about the students by the state of their shoes, the impact of ICE, the repercussions of incarceration, the use of alcohol while in a state of gestation, not to mention the impact of generational poverty, a singular correlation to the withholding of access to appreciating private property. And now that the land values are rising, like they did when Holly residents occupied Little Mexico on the edge of town, the spectators come with cash that's enticing, and those wanting to stay are displaced by taxes too pricey. Culture is supplanted and people are forced out through myriad practices. But don't worry, the new landscaping includes plans for some cactuses. You know, xeriscaping is oh so progressive, but all the tax structures in Texas are regressive. We make it better, we make it safe, we put up big fences to keep it that way. We make it better, we make it safe, we put up big fences to keep it that way. And where there used to be the voices of children and chickens, it's a subculture, box houses and gates, leaving the schools once brimming with students of color depleted in the wake. In memory and in hope for consolidation, we need a new vision, a change in direction. Education can be so much more at a fraction of the cost, but we must return to its purpose before we are lost in a sea of technocratic solutions, diplomatic illusions, and state enforcement agency intrusion. Instead, seek harmonious coexistence between man and the environment. The solidarity of peace put war and harm into retirement. philosophers concerned with the interdependency of all human endeavor. Get rid of this notion that some are just more clever. Never give up, never give in. Keep on with your prayers until they're answered within. Because all we need already exists if we just find the ganas to stand up to the test. IQ or otherwise, they're all imbued